Alright, so as promised, I want to give you guys a little overview of this Iron Eagle trailer that we just picked up yesterday. I decided to go full bore, get every option that Iron Eagle offered. So we went with a 26-foot standard bed. The reason I went with 26 foot is it's the longest that we could get with the double axle. If you go into 28 foot, you have to go to 3 axles. That was just purely from a cost perspective. To have the extra 2 foot added on to the 24 foot was like $300. But going from a 26 to a 28, which is triple axle, it went up almost 2,000. So for me, that was the perfect size to cost ratio. And to make up for that a little bit, we added this 2 foot by 4 foot bump out in the front. And Iron Eagle offers this pretty inexpensively. It's only a few $100s to have this bump out installed. And a lot of people use this bump out for a utility box, and that is a awesome option. But what we're gonna go do is we're going to actually notch the living room. We're gonna have a little extension of the living room that is going to house the electric fireplace and the television, both wall mounted. One thing to note, I have 2 new style lines on my bumper, aka creases, because I asked Rob, I was like, what's the biggest bump out you can give me? And he's like, I could probably give you a 2 foot by 4 foot. And I said, awesome, do it, just go for it. What I didn't realize was by going that far out and that wide, if you go take a real tight corner with this thing, these little corners go right into your bumper. Luckily I didn't. I mean, they're pretty good creases. I'll give you guys a close-up of it. But be wary of that if you value your truck, which of course I value my truck. I value all my possessions, but at least I have one on each side, so it looks like they're symmetrical. Just keep that in mind. If you're going to be towing this thing, be careful of the really sharp corners. I think I did this either in the Home Depot parking lot when I was picking up this Foamular, or I did it when I was backing it into the space here because it's kind of tight maneuvering around in here. Anyway, so the bump out's going to be part of the living room, and then the loft above the living room is going to cantilever out and sit on top of this framing. And if you've looked at the SketchUp design video that I did, you'll see kind of how that bump out looks. Another option that we went with is the fender flashing. In my perspective, that should be a standard feature on every trailer, because a standard wheel well is just asking for water penetration to come in there. I mean, you got water coming down your sheeting. Most tiny houses don't have good eave overhang. Generally they don't have any eave overhang at all because of your maximum width. People don't want to go past that 8'6" mark. So their roofing will just barely cover their siding and stop there. So you're gonna get a lot of water sheeting down the side of this building. And when it hits that fender well, which sticks out 2 or 3 inches because the edge of trailer wheels are allowed to be 108 inches, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but do your own research. But as far as I know, 8'6" for the building. The edge of the tires can be 108 inches. So they stick out further, and when that water comes down, hits that fender, it just wants to splash horizontally, right? And if you don't have good flashing there, that water's just gonna come straight inside the building. caulking, things like that, they're not going to do you any good. I mean, they'll last for 6 months, but caulking shrinks. So if you're buying a trailer that doesn't have that fender flashing, strongly consider how you're going to handle the wheel well water penetration issue. So I went with that. I think it was like $100. I mean, it's best insurance policy, right? And then the last feature are these ram jacks. Iron Eagle has an option for scissor jacks on their website and on their build sheets. And I did a little bit of research, watched a lot of YouTube videos, which you guys are doing right now, and I read some negative things about scissor jacks, especially using scissor jacks for a long period of time, or if you're using the scissor jacks to lift. So there's a difference between leveling and supporting, to keep the building from rocking, and lifting. If you're taking your tiny house off the wheels for any reason, level out your space better, because especially scissor jacks, they don't have good support side to side. So if they get twisted in the wrong way, they can collapse sideways. Anyway, so I talked to Rob and I said, hey, I've seen these videos, these guys using ram jacks, which is traditional on the tongue of most trailers. But I was like, can you put 4 ram jacks on each corner instead of using the scissor jacks? And he's like, you know what, I've never done that before, but sure, we can do it. It was a minuscule cost difference. I think it was like under $50 per jack difference. So I went with that. They do stick out of the front and the back instead of being on the underside. So there's some design considerations regarding that. If you're going to do like a rear hangover utility box, these rotate. So when they rotate, you have to give them clearance, so you can't have anything on your building that would prevent them from rotating. Also, one thing that Rob noticed when they installed these is the crank. Since they're set horizontally, the crank wants to fall with gravity at a 90-degree angle. So when you're driving down the road, it kind of wants to do this. So a simple solution for that was just zip tie it up, a 2-cent solution to a little bit of a problem. So they're zip tied up. You just, anytime you move it, you just cut the zip ties, and or anytime you get to your new location, cut the zip ties and lower the jacks, and you're set. Even if you're moving your tiny house every month, what a zip tie is, like I said, not even 2 cents. But I think these are going to be a really good option for stability, keeping the house from wobbling at all while we're walking around inside. The last feature or option that I went with is the galvanized sheet pan. Mostly I wanted a substrate that the foamular could sit on. It's not watertight. In each corner there's spacing, and Rob immediately recommended that you buy some mesh, some bug mesh, metal bug mesh, not screen door plastic bug mesh, but metal bug mesh, and put it in each of these corners and glue it down with some of your favorite construction adhesive. So with the sheet pan, I'm getting a nice solid flat base, and if any water does get in here, get under the foamular, it has some place to escape. It's got these little vents, I'm just going to call them vents, in the corners. You do have the option, you could just cover those up with some sheet metal, completely seal them with some real good mastic, but then if any water does get under the foamular, or if you're not using foamular, if you're using some other kind of, if you're using like Armax, or you're using cellulose, or you're using rock wool, or whatever, if water does get in that cavity, this whole cavity here, it's pretty large, you know, say you had a sink overfill, or you had your shower or your bathtub leaked. You're gonna get moisture down here. So having a place for it to escape is always good. Rob even said that there's no problem in drilling some concentric holes in the sheeting to improve that water evacuation. I think that kind of gives the opportunity for more water to come in. So I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to put in the bug screen, lay down the foamular, and then I'm going to put in some vapor tape in select areas. So that's kind of the overview of the trailer itself. Some features that come with just the standard trailer. If you didn't get any of the add-on options, you just want the base trailer, no matter what, you're getting a trailer brake system, a breakaway system, a 2 5/16 ball hitch, an extended tongue, a nice big ram jack that has a pull pin drop leg. So you're not sitting there like cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking for hours trying to bring the whole leg up. You just pull a pin, drop the leg, put the pin in, and then you give it a couple cranks and you're up. Has a 7-pin electrical connection to your truck. One thing I was not educated on is it doesn't matter if the trailer has trailer brakes. If you don't have a trailer brake controller in your truck, no trailer brakes. So luckily, I mean, I drove for 7 hours from Portland to Washington. I went over 2 very large passes, and the Tacoma handled it no problem. This is about a ton unloaded, so it's not maxing out anybody's towing capacity whatsoever, unless you're towing it with a car. And you get your standard safety chains, license plate frame, and that's really the whole package. But when you put it all together, this thing is built incredibly well. They're a great team of guys to work with over at Iron Eagle, and it's really designed well. All of these pre-drilled holes for your sill plates, your base plates, for all your floor joists. It's just a really good system, and I highly recommend them. If you're looking at other manufacturers, look at what these trailers can do for you, and then ask those companies why they're not doing that. Because in my mind, the reasons that they're building their trailers this way has its justifications. And Rob and those guys, they've been building these things for 12 years. I think these are the oldest as-built tiny house trailers that are out there. I could be wrong on that, but in my research, these guys have been doing it for the longest. So, next video, we're going to be putting down the foamular, floor joist system. I'm going to be doing some of the drain plumbing for the toilet, sink, kitchen sink, and vanity sink. And then we'll be filling it up with insulation and putting over the sheeting. So I might throw in a video in between talking about something else, but that's what I have planned next, and hope you guys stay tuned and subscribe.